Good morning and welcome to Leadership Tip Tuesday with Coach Ellis. Hey, this is the day I spend just a few minutes talking to leaders, emerging, existing, and exiting leaders about the principles that help guide us as we lead others. So it doesn't matter whether or not you are a leader of a major Fortune 500 company, a military leader, just leading your family, or a small nonprofit, the leadership principles are pretty much the same. So what I want to talk to you today about is observing the little things, making the small corrections so you don't have to make the big corrections. So, Lady D, here's what happened. I was driving earlier this morning, and as you drive, you look out through your front window, and you're scanning left to right. You're seeing what's going on, traffic, who's getting in your lane, who's going to jet out in front of you, people walking, signs. You see a lot of things. And when we get into this routine of driving, we're used to seeing certain landmarks. I know where the store is. I know where the gas station is. I know the guy who's going to be walking that time in the morning, walking his dog. You get into routines. And oftentimes when leaders, we get into routine, we fail to see small, subtle changes. So this morning as I was driving, as I was scanning the horizon, going over my normal everyday routine as I drive, I noticed something that stuck out. I didn't know what it was, but something wasn't right about the picture I was seeing. And the more I studied it as I'm driving, I think something isn't right. So I look at, the trees haven't changed colors and no one's trying to get into my lane. That's the same delivery truck comes every day. The driver's the same. And it took me just a few minutes to realize that my hood was unlatched and it was vibrating. And so I pulled over to the side of the road, closed the hood, got back in and drove. And I started to think, what would have happened if I had not noticed that the hood was unlatched and the hood came up? And when it came up, it would have covered the entire front window. I would not have been able to see anything. The leadership lesson here is, as we're into our leadership routines, we have to notice the small changes and then make the corrections on the small things that are happening so that we don't have to face the big corrections when we can't see in front of us. Oftentimes when we run into difficulty, that difficulty looms so large in front of us that we no longer have the big picture. All we see is what's right in front of us. In other words, all we see is the hood up against the windshield. But if we had taken the scan of the horizon and just noticed that it was vibrating, stopped to make that small corrections, we never had to deal with the bold corrections necessary to combat the entire hood being up against the window. Therefore, not having to make decisions, bold decisions, drastic decisions, and not being able to see the entire picture. Leaders, we have to understand that small corrections along the way prevent bold corrections later on. And if we understand this, as we lead others, we can begin to make small corrections in people's character, small corrections in processes, small corrections in attitudes at the smallest level. Therefore, we don't have a big issue later on when it blows up, when that attitude gets out of control, when that coworker has the straw that broke the camel's back happened to that coworker. You've gotten on their last nerve. All of that can be avoided if we make the small corrections early. And then we don't have to make the big corrections later. In fact, someone once told me, consistent small corrections prevent bold corrections later on. So this is our leadership principle for today. Look out and scan your horizon. As you go about your routine, notice the small things, make the small corrections so you don't have to make the bold corrections later. Just a thought for leaders. So if you got any questions or comments, go ahead and hit it down in the comments below. Shoot me an email at coach@elliscrum.net or, hit me up on Facebook at Coach Ellis. So on this day, the 3rd of July, one of my favorite days, I want you to have a one-tabulous leadership and correcting the small things Leadership Tip Tuesday. God bless you, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.